والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سيدات والسادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning. It is with a great pleasure to be among you here this morning to present some thoughts around human capital development in the Arab world. Due to the time schedule, I'll go on to the presentation directly. I'll first of all talk about the concept of human capital. Then I'll go on to talk about some challenges faced by the Arab countries related to human capital development. And then I'll go on to talk about some of the nationalization initiatives that were talked by Professor Khalid. And then I'll present some thoughts around the engagement of youth in our organizations as well as the leadership culture development. So to start with, the world that we live in today is very much full of change. The change is becoming the language that today's world is speaking with. With the accelerated mood of change, the uncertainty, and as a result, the complexity is also raising, and organizations are facing difficult times when it comes to to managing business issues. Technology is reshaping and transforming the way that we live today, and it's even changing the way even we learn to do things. Organizations are facing difficult times to come up with a design, as Professor Khalid was mentioning, to align the human dimension with the strategy and the goals and objectives of the organization. There has been massive investments when it comes to organizations investing in approaches and frameworks to develop strategies to to align the human resources to the businesses. The concept today is to transform human resources into human capital. Human capital, basically, it's about, a set of competencies, knowledge, social and personality attributes, as well as the creativity and capabilities of the labor workforce to produce economic value to the organization or to the nation itself. Human capital is very much, again, related to the economy. There has been so much examination studies carried out to examine the relationship between human capital as well as the economy development itself. So, for example, Arthur Pigou, an English economist, he tries to distinguish between the consumption-based economies and the investment-based economies, where organizations are needed to look into how to invest more thoroughly in human capital. Theodore Schultes, an American economist, he also says human capital is like any other capital. So when it comes to human capital, we need to invest in it through education programs, training and development programs, as well as benefit schemes that should lead to the improvement of the quality and the level of the production in our organizations. So the most important and fundamental thing is to align the employee life cycle with the organizational life cycle, and that is to ensure stagnancy and complacency. Human capital, in a nutshell, it's an investment in nurturing and retaining talents, as well as recognizing achievements, as well as enabling personal and organizational growth. So let's look at some challenges that Arab countries are actually facing nowadays. As Professor Khalid, the Accenture studies, there are several studies that examine the different challenges that countries actually face. Arab countries are among them. One is related to the underutilization of the national workforce. Second is that large proportions of the national workforce is working in the public sector. Another is related to the human unemployment. It's a high unemployment rates among the youth population. The education and training systems are not matching the labor marketplace requirements. Brain drain, where people are leaving their organizations as well as the countries because of finding better job opportunities. Another challenge, the sixth challenge, is about disparities in access to educational opportunities. Looking at some statistics here, there is a high literacy in the Arab world specifically, with some countries scoring 97%. among both genders. There has been huge also efforts by governments in the Arab world to close the gender gap between females and males in terms of the university education. Despite all this, the unemployment among the youth generation is reaching almost 25%, and even more. One may wonder, despite the fact that Arab countries are, producing or having highest per capita incomes, why do we have such disparity? Or what are the underlying issues behind that? There are different reasons behind this. I'll just talk about two primary ones. One is related to the growth of population in the Arab world. Again, from 128 million people in 1970, we are expecting to have 600 million people by 2050. Another aspect is related to the quality and relevance of education system, which is not properly tailored to the needs of the labour marketplace, which inhabits economies to create sufficient jobs. Again, looking at some nationalization initiatives, GCC countries have been very much active. Like they have got specific programs like quotization, Qatarization, Bahrainization, and so on and so forth. So there are so many initiatives to localize. In the UAE, for example, again, there is a clear leadership that the human capital is fundamental and backbone to the government development and future. We have got also several initiatives to cover a nationalization of the workforce. Overall, what governments are trying to do in the Arab world is to increase the employability rate among its nation through laws and legislation, or through nationalization initiatives, or through specific training and development programs to raise the skills overall. Governments in the region have supported the employment and the workforce nationalization. Indeed, according to the recent IMF report, governments actually, allocate almost 10% in the MENA region, 10% of their GDP towards the wages and salaries of the national workforce in the public sector, which is almost double the global average. Governments basically in the region, they not only employ more, but they pay more as well. Some statistics from the Arab countries, it indicates that we have got 55 million people seeking jobs. Again, if we look at the population growth percentages, we see that the population growth is estimated at 360 million people right now in the Arab world, and it is expected to grow by 120 million people in the coming 17 years. The issue is that by 2030, in the coming 17 or less years, 95 million new people are going to join the job-seeking list. The real challenge is to create 140 million jobs in the Arab world alone, which is going to be a challenge in the coming 15 years. And again, to create such jobs, we need almost $14 trillion to create such number of jobs. Basically, what we need is, again, we need the private sector. There are definitely many approaches to handle this. However, what we believe is that the private sector, specifically in the Arab world, need to be incentivized to offer more lucrative job opportunities, to incentivize as well the national workforce to join in. At the same time, governments need to play a critical role, and this is fundamental to balance the requirements of the job market. There are, governments need to play a critical role in addressing the needs of the market in terms of the education and the skills perspective. In a nutshell, what we need in government, from governments, is to set up a national human capital development policy, and this needs to exist in our governments. Currently, we don't have a clear picture of what is the national human capital policy look like in our governments. We have got different scattered initiatives, but this is not existent. And part of this policy, what we need is to combine all those scattered efforts, and to have also some sort of common goals and KPIs that we can measure both at the operational as well as the strategic level. Private sector, They also need to participate more actively in the whole development of this, the development process. So one may also ask, do we really need Superman or Superman concept? What we need in the Arab world is basically super minds. So we need to develop mindsets that could actually address the challenges of tomorrow. So this takes me to the issue of again preparing younger generation to join in the workforce as well as to participate in the development of their nations. The concept here is very much problematic. It's not really as easy as it may sound. So what we need is that in our organizations, not only to get those people who are actually skilled enough or highly educated, what we need to develop some management practices in our organizations that should give focus on the development of skills. The excellence models, the government of the UAE, for example, they have been very much active in promoting this excellence culture. Or AFQ model, for example, also addresses some critical areas that we need to address in the human capital development. However, we need to shift the mindset from purely the current mindset, which is documentation and presentation, to the actual development of excellence cultures in our organizations. We shouldn't really start from scratch. There are some standards and frameworks that are available, like the American Society for Training and Development competency model that we should actually rely on, and we should actually pay higher attention to the organization design, whether the organization is the nation itself, the country itself, or it's a particular business. The leadership is particularly important. What is missing in the Arab world is leadership. A leadership with vision. We have got so many people that could be characterized as leaders, but how we can differentiate whether, again, we have effective leaders in our organizations. If we can, again, look at current organizations, there are some characteristics, for example, that could explain the culture that we have. There is little or no support to new leaders. And the training and development programs are inconsistent, and it's not linked to the strategy nor to the objectives and goals of the organization. There is no model for leadership, and basically there is uncertainty in our organizations about the future leaders who are supposed to lead our organizations. What we need basically is to tie the leadership development requirement to the vision and mission of the country, as well as the organization itself and the stakeholders' expectation. Plus, this should influence the skills needed in the leadership that we have, or what we are seeking. The most important thing here is that, again, leadership needs more coaching and support to accelerate the process of individual learning. An important perspective here, many governments and many organizations are trying to pursue the concept of organizational learning and to become a learning organization. However, this is going to remain a theoretical construct unless organizations will have strong leadership. The most fundamental thing that we need to understand and to heed is that organizations don't produce leaders. Leaders are those who actually produce leaders. Again, there is the organizations and governments need to pay particular attention and develop a radar system to evaluate and develop some sort of sensors for us to develop ourselves, and again, which pays particular attention to the behavioral aspect in our leadership people overall. The most important, again, there are some important areas that we need to focus on. When we talk about leadership, we need those people who are capable to create positive work environments, influence behavior, encourage participation and development of skills in organizations, as well as the measurement, which is something missing in our organizations as well. I've been a bit faster in my presentation because of the time constraint and the time allocated to my presentation. Anyway, more details is going to be published soon after the conference, and it's going to be available through our website. So let me just conclude my presentation. The world of today that we live in, as Professor Khalid indicated, it's very much fragmented and very much fragile. What we need is to pay particular attention to how we are addressing future challenges and what is needed from our side. So we need some sort of consciousness and diligent steps towards the development of a knowledge-based organizations, which should contribute to the development of knowledge-based economies. And knowledge management basically can't really work if we don't have the thinking and the basis for sustainable human capital development. The concept of supply and demand, previously in manufacturing age, the quantity and the price of goods and services would have determined the supply and demand rules, as well as the point of equilibrium. Today, with in the knowledge age that we live in, the knowledge and information are actually the factors that determine the supply and demand and create actually different equilibrium points as well. So what we need basically, for governments and organizations as well as individuals to understand, is that the human element is very much dynamic and we need to treat it as such. The most important thing is that we need to understand the equilibrium points that we need to put in place, and which should trigger the policy development and should influence the human capital formation. With that, I conclude my presentation. If you'd like to, again, get more information about what we do at Emirates Identity Authority, please visit our website, ali.ae. And thank you very much for your patience and listening.